Okay, so I'm popping in here to let you know that something came after the ducks this morning. I have ducks. If you don't know that, I have some ducks. They're not really pets. They're accidental acquisitions. Anyway, something came after the ducks this morning and they freaked out in the backyard. And the ducks are fine. Don't worry about them. But, yeah, it was loud. So I didn't sleep enough last night. So this voiceover is a little weird. My apologies. What's up, fellow troublemakers? I am coming at you hot with the redesign of the magical girl that you guys helped me come up with. So I got a lot of comments on my last drawing and video specifically from the people who helped design her that they liked her and they didn't understand why I didn't. So I'm taking you through these early planning sketches to sort of give some insight into that. One of the things that was true was that there was nothing wrong with the magical girl, like just as a generic magical girl. But I felt like she lacked references that made her relevant based on what we knew about her. And also relevant to like the kind, I'm slowly developing my own style. My own style is not, set in stone yet, but there are things that I know that I like. And the magical girl that I developed before was a little too standard anime and not quite enough how Jessica likes to draw people. So this time I started with her everyday alter ego. Instead of the magical girl, I started with our tea shop worker because that's her secret identity and that's, who she is in her everyday life. So I put together this sketch of, someone who might work in a tea shop. She wears a beanie, she's got some slouchy pants, she has a all-purpose utility apron for tips and also wiping her hands on after she inevitably gets them wet. I don't know your life, tea shop workers, but I can extrapolate because I cook. So yeah. Oh, I'm so off track this morning. Anyway, the point is, this time I started with that base sketch, even though it is a much reduced part of the final illustration. Like, it's not the focus of the final illustration, but I felt like I needed to know who she was in her secret identity before I could look at developing who she was as a magical girl. So once I had her secret identity all set, I moved on and I started with what elements I wanted to bring over into her magical girl superhero costume. The very first thing that I wanted to make sure I included was the apron. That felt like a really solid reference point between the two identities to me. So I made it like super floofy and whatever. It's definitely a different type of apron. It's more frilly. It's got a giant bow in the back. But the important thing is there's reference points between the two, like for me. The other thing that I really thought was relevant for who this girl was her beanie and her slouchy pants. Like that aesthetic, the relaxed kind of hipster girl who would work in a tea shop. I really wanted that to carry over. So I didn't want long bare legs that were, or just legs covered in tights or whatever. So I don't know if these things really exist, but certainly I've seen in a large number of cartoons this fantasy garment that belts just above the knee and then acts like as a pant on your lower leg while leaving your thighs bare. So I gave them to my magical girl, and all of a sudden I had a great place to put more pockets. So I was really happy with that too. The beanie was going to have to go by the wayside because she couldn't have proper magical girl hair with the beanie. But I did like the idea that maybe she's got more of this abundant hair. She just hides it under her beanie when she's in her secret identity. I don't know. I thought that might be cool. But yeah, I went ahead and gave her the long flowing hair of a magical girl, but I did put it in braids because no self-respecting food service worker leaves their hair down when they're on the job. Like, that just wouldn't happen. And I changed her echolocation tiara to just be, you know, a normal tiara, not one that ran the strip down her forehead. It just seemed like it was gonna go better. So once I got that all set, then I was ready to actually move on to the layout and what I wanted the finished piece to look like. I started off working on this in my sketchbook. I don't know why, but I feel more freedom sometimes when I'm working with a pencil instead of a stylus. That doesn't make any sense logically because it's much easier to change things digitally. But when I'm just like spitballing, I don't know what you call spitballing when it's not verbal and instead it's visual. But anyway, when I'm doing visual spitballing, for some reason, I just feel more comfortable doing it with a pencil in my hand. So that's what I was doing. I did change the layout a little bit. It meant that our adorable little chinchilla was not going to make it into the final product. But you can just imagine that she's reaching for the chinchilla, right? Like, you have the capacity to do that. And I did think that this pose where her arm passes into the liquid Schwartz and then emerges like facing the camera, grasping for something, was much more dynamic and interesting. So that's what I went with. Our girl's secret identity is lingering in the background there. I have her breaking the fourth wall. She's got a finger to her mouth. She's urging us to keep the secret because we're in the know, obviously. When it came time for line art, I went with a much thicker fine liner than I normally do. I'm not sure. It was calling to me. I feel like I don't really know how I want to line things yet, and so I'm trying a bunch of stuff out, and this was what I tried today. And I will say I did like it. I like that thick, heavy delineation. That may change as I hopefully work on my shadows, and I'm hoping to get a greater variety of line weight in there, which again is sort of a skill I just need to practice. But compared to a thin line, which I feel like my thin lines always end up wobbly, I did kind of like this thicker line art that I'm working with here. So then it was time to color. I have a love-hate, really not hate, love-fear relationship with coloring not digitally. On the one hand, I really love it. It's soothing. I enjoy the process of selecting colors and digging through my markers and doing the swatches. I enjoy the physical aspect of blending with markers as opposed to like using the airbrush tool digitally. But it can go horribly wrong, and if it does, there may not be anything you can do to save it without turning it into a muddy mess. And that scares me in a way that it doesn't on digital art. It's much easier for me to be brave with my colors on digital art, because if it's terrible, I haven't tanked my sketch and line art and all the time I've spent in it so far. The girl's skin tone is a really good example of this. I got partway through and then had a moment because I realized that I'd been coloring them like they were, my art style is not realistic, but the slightly more defined faces that I like to draw, instead of the anime faces that I had given this girl. I mean, it's accurate. She has more than one face because she's represented more than once on this page, but it does sound weird to use the singular with the plural like that. Anyway, my point is, when I tried to go back and correct for the weird shading I'd done, I turned her face much darker than I had been anticipated being, and it started to blend with her hair. And I could have made the hair darker, but I actually really liked the way the hair turned out, so it was a thing. So all in all, it was one of those situations where it was exciting and adventuresome, and I really enjoy coloring with markers, but at the same time, I ended up really disappointing myself. And that was sad. Then it was time for clothes. And this tends to be less stressful for me because it doesn't have the same kind of variation as faces, and it tends to matter less to me if I mess up here because I'm unlikely to make something look completely horrible just because the clothes aren't perfect. At least in my eyes. I'm sure somebody else has a completely different reverse view, but whatever. This is my art. I can talk about what it means to me. And I was fine with how the Secret Identity turned out. When we came to the Magical Girl, because she was a thief, I had felt like the original color palette was too bright. I know azure was her favorite color, but it was just too bright. Like, you don't go sneaking around somebody's house looking like a neon sign. A blue neon sign, but still a neon sign. So when I got to doing her costume, I stuck with the azure for the accessories, the apron, and I think I did the headband, and then the legs also in that azure color, with some, nice deep shadows and stuff where it would blend as she's crouching in a hallway waiting to steal your jewelry because you're a terrible person who oppresses their workers. I don't know. Look, I got deep into her socialism and Robin Hood aspects. But when I got to her bodysuit that she wears underneath it, I went much darker with the whole thing. So on the one hand, aesthetically, I have concerns because it feels like there's not enough contrast between her heavily shaded apron and her bodysuit. Like, it's not there. It's not doing it for me. But on the other hand, in terms of sort of narrative design, a darker undersuit is precisely what I wanted her to have. Like, I want her to look like could hide in the shadows. And so I was having a really hard time reconciling those two needs, like the aesthetic, oh no, there's not enough contrast, and the design, but she should absolutely be sort of a shadowy, not distinct character. When I was done with the marker and paper version, I did like it. I liked the contrast between the hair and the liquid Schwartz with the blues of her outfit, but there were some things that seemed muddy and desaturated to me that I hadn't wanted to be that way. So I loaded the entire thing into my drawing tablet and decided basically to do the whole thing over again. Now, I am not going to double the length of this video and make you sit through the whole process all over again, but I am going to call out a couple things that I loved about redoing this on my tablet. First of all, I kept that heavy line weight that I had used on the paper and marker version, but the thing about the digital tablet is that because I can zoom in and zoom out, I felt like I had a lot more precision about where I was placing those thick lines. I did a much better job with the ruffles on the frilly apron on the magical girl. I did a much better job with the eyes. I did a much better job with the face. I had the opportunity to go back and correct those giant thick lines that I had put down, and that was just really pleasing to me. That being said, redoing the line art all over again was not my favorite moment. The coloring in general went really smoothly. Again, not going to make you sit through it all over again. I was basically attempting to work with the same colors that I had used previously in the other image, but just saturate them a little bit more, make sure that the highlights were popping more, that the shadows were deeper, work through the entire thing so that when you looked at it, the entire image felt distinct and readable instead of slightly muddy. When I was done, this is what I had, and I will let you be the judge of whether putting double the time in to do a digital version was worth it or not. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. Also, let me know what you think this girl's name should be, because I haven't named her yet, and everyone needs a name. Like the video if you are enjoying my content, and subscribe if you want to hear more occasional random stories about how my ducks woke me up way too early in the morning. Y'all have a good weekend. Thanks for watching. Bye.